Wonderful to see everybody coming in. Just a few more people are coming in. Hope everybody's having a lovely Monday. We had two Trojan Connects go this morning, one in London, which I was very excited to see, and a fantastic one about supporting the Trojan family put on by Annenberg. And what was really special, and this is why we're doing these as meetings, they're really special because there were people connecting with each other in the chat. So feel free to connect with people in the chat or ask your questions, and they will be funneled to our moderator and our two panelists. We are so grateful to be able to have our two panelists and our wonderful moderator, with whom I'll introduce in a moment, for our Trojan Connects. This is a series this week. In 4 days, we have 35 alumni events happening. Some are in person, some are online. They are all over the world: London, Egypt, Indonesia, all over the United States, Denver, New York, Texas. So we are really showing who we are as Trojans. And I cannot be more thrilled to be the co-chair of this with lovely Henry. I am actually on the Board of Governors. So the Board of Governors is the governing body for the Alumni Association. So this was a remit that was sent to us to start these Trojan Connects and do career support for the Alumni Association because of a survey that went out a couple years ago to the alumni body, 500,000 alumni worldwide, lifelong and worldwide. And so this went out and they said that they were wanting more career support from alumni to alumni. So this is very much focused on the Trojan family. So I'm absolutely thrilled to have everybody here, and also a massive shout out to the Alumni Association for being the spine, the bone, the everything for these Trojan Connects. And Simone has done an amazing job. And so I've been working with her. So I had to give context for where we are today. So I'm going to facilitate just right now, introduce our panelist and our moderator, and then I'm going to let our moderator take it from here. But remember, this is an interactive session, so please do discuss things with each other. See if we can put your LinkedIn in there and have each other follow each other on LinkedIn if you so feel like it, and know that we're here, Trojans supporting Trojans. So I'm going to introduce right off the bat Claire Song. Claire is the co-founder of Honeydew Labs, and you're in Canada, a skincare brand dedicated to promoting self-love through simple routines for an on-the-go lifestyle. I love that. I need that. A longtime skincare enthusiast, Claire began her early career in tech in San Francisco, working at Curology, where she deepened her expertise at the intersection of skincare, technology, and growth marketing. She also spent time with PepsiCo. Thank you, Claire. And I'm going to go on and introduce Jenny. So Jennifer Stingler, now I'm going to say this the English way. No, I'm not. I'm going to say it Houghton. That's the way to say it. So there's a big debate about but there isn't a debate. Jennifer is a seasoned marketer with more than 13 years of experience building and scaling beauty and wellness brands, from startups to Fortune 100 companies. She is currently the director of brand and corporate marketing at Devote Health and teaches at USC. And Tom's going to talk a little bit more about that. So we have one of our faculty here. So thank you very much. A former consultant, Jennifer also serves as general manager for new marketing segments. She also served as general manager for new marketing segments, also at Curology. And Jennifer and Claire have not actually met each other before today. So prior to this, she spent nearly 6 years at Johnson & Johnson, leading go-to-market strategy and product innovation for Neutrogena. So welcome again to the Trojan family, but you're already part of it. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator for today, Tom Hincanus, or Hincanius. I say Hincanus, but that's we've known each other for over 7 years now, and he and I have served on the board of governors together. Tom does so much for the university in alumni leadership. And that's really something also that maybe you'll touch on a little bit is alumni leadership and really how people can get involved with the university, which is an amazing networking tool.
Yes.
So, Tom is a very good friend of mine. So, I am absolutely thrilled to have him here today. Tom is a graduate of USC Dornsife and USC Annenberg. We also, yeah, right on. We also served on the USC Dornsife Alumni Advisory Council. After graduation, he spent 10 years as a journalist, winning two Emmy Awards. I still want to see those. I've seen them in the background when we talk sometimes, but I want to like hold them. We're delighted to lean on those skills today as he will lead the conversation. Somewhere along the way, Tom also started teaching marketing courses at FIDM in its Beauty Business Management bachelor's program. That got his feet wet in beauty and fashion. Later, he came back to USC for a master's from Iovine Young Academy, or Iovine Young, depending on how people want to say it, that propelled him to launch Henkeys, a men's grooming retailer focused on curating the best of men's indie brands. So now he's deep in the industry and well positioned to lead today's conversation. So thank you, Tom. I'm going to hand it over to you. And Simone, you can take me off the spotlight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priya. Priya has done so much work, not just for this panel, but for so many panels. We at USC are, among the alumni, are 500,000 of us globally now. Owe Priya and her team, and really the entire USC Alumni Association staff, a huge debt of gratitude for putting these events together. It's really a terrific week, and I encourage everybody, if you've not signed up, today is Monday of Trojan Connects week. So please look online. There's plenty more terrific events online and in person, and we certainly encourage you to attend them. I'm so excited, and I feel privileged to be participating in the conversation. For the longest time, I felt like I was faking my way in the beauty industry. But now that I run a company, I feel like I actually have to take ownership of the fact that I'm in the beauty industry, and that is my home. And I think we'll talk in a few minutes about sort of different pathways in, as I know many of us start somewhere else and then find our way to the space that is exceptionally welcoming and very small and very open. And there's just so many wonderful things to say about beauty. And so I appreciate being a part of this today, and I'm excited to lead this conversation. Priya did a wonderful job introducing both Claire and Jenny. What I thought would be sort of an interesting place for us to start, those of us who start businesses in the beauty industry, as with any industry, we of course need to focus on brand and building a brand first. There are so many products, and quite frankly, there are so many products that have very similar formulations that brand almost matters more than anything else. I think of all industries globally, we probably spend the most on marketing, usually upwards of 35%. I've read some companies up to 50% of retail goes to marketing expenses. And that's, as most of you know who are coming from other spaces, that's exceptionally large chunk of marketing spend. So Claire, maybe we'll start with you and your sort of pain point, your why statement, etc., and where you found your way into the beauty industry.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys so much for such a amazing welcome. I didn't go to USC, but this is really making me wish I did. Like this is
It's
such
not
a
too late.
wonderful
Get a
community.
master's.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah. I'm Canadian, by the way, for everyone who just joined. I started my career in San Francisco, and I'm so excited to be chatting with you guys today about this. For us, so my company, we're called Honeydew Labs. We started back 3 years ago, so we are still a relatively new company with the mission to promote self-love and positivity. In skincare, especially now with the rise of just like being so glued to TikTok, there's just so much you can consume, especially about skincare on TikTok. And we really want to simplify this and make it so that it's not so confusing. It's not so, so much noise about
Mm,
what you should or shouldn't be doing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, how should skincare make you feel? It should really make
yeah.
you feel happy. And also with our platform, we really try to promote everyday like little joys as well. So if you guys go on our Instagram, you'll see that there is a section that we dedicate to happy news, which is a weekly segment. So yeah, at Happy
It's
Labs, we love to promote self-positivity and self-love through our messaging.
Claire, what year did you start the company?
We started in 2023.
Is that the real year, or like there's 2 years in my mind when I started my company. There's when I came up with it, and then when we actually incorporated. What's the real year?
True. Um, the real year still is 2023, but it's
Okay.
December, like end of December. So sometimes I say 2024, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. So but in essence, my point is it took about a year from inception to launch. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And what's interesting, I think what my brand shares with yours is we don't say happiness, we focus on confidence. And we're building confidence in men. And the same thing, it's an over populated marketplace. And
Mhm.
so we curate, we're a multi-brand retailer, we wholesale all the products. So we
Mhm.
curate though to the simplified routines that you're talking about. And
Yeah.
I bring up that to then pivot to you, Jenny, and say, like, how common is this? Is you've been on both sort of the indie side of the industry and also on the large brand side. And for people who aren't familiar with the grooming industry or the beauty industry, let me just explain. There are indies and then there are the majors. And there really is no space in between almost. The majors are brands that you've heard of like L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, LVMH, Shiseido, and Puig out of Spain. And those companies buy the indies as quickly as possible and cobble them up and then sometimes change formulations and make other changes. And that's why you're like, wait, my brand is not the same as it was 2 months ago. And that would be why. So that's on one side of the industry. And then on the other side is companies like Claire's, which are manufacturing and indie brands themselves. So, Jenny, I now pivot to you after giving my professorial lecture on the history of the beauty industry. I pivot to you to say, as you look at this through both lenses, what do you see and how common is what Claire and I are doing?
I was going to say, I think what is so interesting when I think about like my larger career in the beauty industry, I started Neutrogena a long, long time ago. I think, I don't know, well over 10 years ago. And at that time, the big brands, to your point, were like leading the charge. They were crushing it. They were doing so well. Like just like massive budgets, like advertising everywhere. Again, just like dominating retail shelves. Fast forward to today, and it's been this way for quite some time. The indie brands, the brands that you all are creating, you're leading the charge. Like you're eating the big brands' lunch in a lot of cases. And the big brands are looking at the small brands to say, like, what are you doing? How are you marketing? How can we do more of what you're doing faster and at scale? So I think that is an interesting trend and why they're being gobbled up so quickly because they're really, yeah, that's like kind of, I feel like where it's at. A lot of places.
I have found brands like Neutrogena and even some of the historical brands that come out of like L'Oreal or even just the name brand Estee Lauder, they've not been able to provide the brand positioning that today's audience wants, right?
It's
We are so diversified. Do you see that also?
Yes, and I was also thinking about this as I was prepping for this a little bit. I think there's just been such a shift that's hard for some of the bigger ones to keep up with in that, again, back to when I started Neutrogena, had these massive budgets. We'd work with an agency, we'd create like a very, very expensive commercial, we'd advertise doing whatever. And we were kind of like telling consumers who we were as a brand. Now, like the power shift, of course, like advertising and that kind of big scale advertising still yesterday with the Super Bowl has a lot of has weight as well, but so much of it is coming from the ground up for like from influencers, from community, and it's less about you telling people what your brand is and more about those loyal advocates actually like creating the brand with you and sharing about the brand. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
I want to just quickly, as we continue the conversation, remind everybody that it's clearly a meeting. If you want to jump into the conversation, we'd love it if you use the react button at the bottom and raise your hand, just like old school wise. And then when we have a second, we'll be able to call on you to join in the conversation. For now, though, I wonder, Claire, how you go about basically selling the brand, right? And I don't necessarily mean the product. I'm specifically asking about the brand. What are your methods for getting your brand voice out there and how?
I would say, as a small business, we're still definitely trying to get the brand out there more. I saw a comment saying that one of you guys have tried our product, which makes me super, super happy. But one tactic that has worked extremely well for us, especially as I mentioned, we launched December of 2023. We implemented this in January of 2024 and saw immediate success, which is influencer marketing. And Tom, I think we're probably going to talk about this sooner than later. But this is something that was very big at Curology, as Jenny probably knows. And because I worked in growth at Curology, it's something that I really wanted to try with Honeydew Labs. Essentially,
Yeah.
in January of 2024, we just looked on TikTok, who are our like top influencers that we think really kind of carries a similar brand voice, and influencer profile that we think that would just be a really good match with to the brand. We contacted 10 of those influencers, and I think five or six ended up posting a video, and one out of the six went viral. We're talking like 3 million views. So immediately,
Amazing.
yeah, we saw just like a huge like uptick, not only in sales, but also this is also like related to brand, right? We were like a nobody brand, like literally nobody knew us in January 2024. And then a lot of people on TikTok started talking about the brand. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is one thing that really helped us, and we've continued to obviously, just like improve on the process, but continue to do still to this day.
I think where I'd want to be interested in going with that is then, like, if you would do the same thing today. If anybody follows influencer marketing, and Jenny, I'll pop this to you next, but I want to hear from Claire first. If influencer marketing has evolved dramatically in the last 2 years, and now with the acquisition of TikTok, it is certainly about ready to evolve again. Would you use the same approach today, and do you feel like it would have been just as effective? I have an opinion. I'm happy to give you if you want me to.
Yeah, I would say I would still attempt it to like if this happened again or if I could go back in
Yeah,
time to this present day. However, I would definitely like manage my expectations. Like I don't think we would get the same lift or the same
yeah,
views.
yes,
Especially with TikTok Shop, I think that really came to rise in 2020, honestly 2023 as well, around 2023, 2024. It's been very difficult to for small brands like us to be just like to make a little what's that like dip in the ocean like it's
yep,
there's so many other bigger brands that have the ability to do influencer marketing at a bigger scale that the 10 videos or whatever like it's not going to be seen.
right.
I would do
Jenny,
it,
let's, oh, go
but
ahead.
yeah,
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 yeah.
I would do
I-
it, but just try harder. Yeah, more touch points.
Jenny, what is your take on influencer marketing in the year of our Lord 2026 as we sit here in February and it's not yet March and it might change in the next 3 weeks? Oh, Jenny, you're muted.
Still do that after all these years using Zoom. I'm very curious to hear your point of view. I mean, I still think I agree with Claire. I mean, I think it's like so competitive at this point. Like when I teach my class, we talk a lot about influencer marketing, and obviously like distrust in the channel is growing as well as it's gotten so big. That said, it still wields so much power. And to Claire's point, like you hit it with the right influencer, like that just can make you. So it's a tough one. I think it's getting harder to crack, but like when you crack it, I think it's still a huge key to success now.
I think it depends on how big your team is and how much runway you have in terms of finances, right? A small indie brand is going to have a harder time doing it today
Mhm.
versus 2 years ago, even. And the other thing I would say is it depends on where you're focused in the funnel. It's very much a top of funnel advertising method now. If you're trying to get a conversion to sale, I just don't see it as much. We're back to what we were talking about, I think in 2015 or 16, which was micro influencers, 400, 500, I'm sorry, 5,000, 6,000 followers and I mean, honestly, I said 400. I was thinking about somebody that I've been interacting with who I don't have to pay them a dime and they talk about our brand. Before we move on from influencer, though, I did see 2 hands went up, so I'm assuming that's on this space. So is it Miley? Um, Feel free
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I don't mean to slow the conversation down by any means, so just let me know if I'm talking too much. But obviously, really curious about what we're discussing, and you guys have some great insights. So I wanted to pause quickly. You touched on community, and I also think that ties into influencer marketing in a unique way. I feel like the language is shifting from influencers to like curators and these curators of their communities. Notable like recent brand. I think it was Refi, correct me if I'm wrong, but Refi took like Substack writers, very niche communities, very small communities on a brand trip to actually be the influencers for that brand trip. And I was curious if you had any thoughts on that, or like where you guys stand with your brands and what you're building today and kind of how you're shifting that focus to like curators, I guess.
It's such a great question. I'm happy to chime in, but I don't know, Jenny, do you want to go first?
I'm curious to hear from you all, given you're building the brand. I'm curious. Yeah, let's go.
Claire, what is your take?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I would love to like offer a brand trip like that. I think that's definitely a big goal of the company. Right now, what we're doing to just kind of understand who these types of like superstar community builders might be is just really tracking our PR efforts, like PR gifting efforts. So every month we're literally looking at who's been talking about us and we can see the patterns. Like there's, maybe like 10 folks or so that they're literally promoting Honeydew Labs as if they're employees of ours. Every week. So we have them on a separate list to make sure that we're engaging with them, like we're chatting with them on a monthly basis, and making sure that, they know that we're kind of like very much seeing their efforts and like their help. With this, in 2026 in Q2, we're planning to do more in-person socials, especially with the age of like TikTok and like everything being remote. I do think that physical community is important. So we're planning to partner up with more like gyms, fitness studios, where our hypochlorous acid sprays are like such a good fit for, and
Yeah.
inviting local folks to like help just to like join these in-person events.
I'm going to sound like the old person in the room and say what's old is new again, and then it's new again, and then it's new again. But really, truly, to answer your question, I hope it's Miley. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. There's a bit of a nod. Okay, great. To me, Miley, what we saw in the industry about 10 years ago was a focus on sort of building out influencer campaigns and going after the macro influencer. And then we moved a couple years later into the micro influencer space. And then the influencers wanted to be called content creators. And, like, so everything you just described is simply just a rinse and repeat. We've gone from content creators to community curators, right? Like it's all the same thing. It's all the same role. And as Claire just beautifully described, to me, that's it's you're managing kind of these different audiences. You've got your like biggest cheerleader, and so you're going to manage them differently than you're going to manage this like macro influencer that you're paying several hundreds of thousands of dollars versus a micro influencer that maybe you're just sending some product to. That's kind of my top line quick answer. Adriana, quickly before we move on from this, I think you're on the same subject matter, right?
Yeah. I brought up a question for me for Claire, I think specifically about what that influencer, that micro influencer that you said there was like 3 million plus views. What kind of qualities did they have? Because I'm hearing a lot in my own research, in my own world about, like authenticity and how if something's authentic, then the marketing just happens naturally. So in my like professional life and my personal life, I'm seeing that a lot. So I was just curious if there were any like qualities or what have you that you noticed were successful about those micro influencers.
Yeah, definitely. We've like fleshed out our like ideal influencer profile really based on her, along with a couple others, but one of them would be, of course, she's authentic. She's not overly like trying to put on like a glamorous like appeal or anything like that. She's very much like just seems very like transparent and honest. One thing that I actually think really helped with our product, which is a hypochlorous acid spray, it's more of a scientific ingredient that's less known in the skincare community even now, is the fact that she was a nurse. She was an aesthetics nurse. So that really helped kind of, I think like it helped her that she was credible in the field and sell that ingredient a little bit more. And then also we do look at things like view rates and follower counts and yeah, I would say, yeah. And is she like someone who's well positioned to talk about skincare, either her personal skincare journey or, more medically, let's say, like as a nurse, things like that.
Credibility matters so much. I just, yeah, Jenny.
I was going to chime in really quickly just on this topic of like credibility and trust. Something we did, and Claire,
Hmm.
I'm curious if you were involved in this as well at Curology, but we had a brand ambassador program at Curology, and we had, I think it was like an intern who literally just like all day would try to find people like naturally talking about Curology and following hashtags and whatnot. And again, these obviously were not influencers. They had very, very small followings, but they were such a powerful force for us. And like the content they created that, again, a lot of times we would amplify with big paid media spends would just like crush anything else. So yeah, just in terms of like authenticity, I think that was like a very powerful, powerful group. And yeah.
I'd like to turn as Leg Avenue Inc. I hope I'm promoting your brand. I don't think that's your name, but maybe it is. As Leg Avenue Inc. had pointed out, is to sales channel strategy. That has been a really interesting evolution in the last, I would say even, I mean, like really the last 2 months, but even longer than that. You know, we started with obviously you had just to give everybody sort of an overview of how the industry has evolved over the last 2 decades. So you basically had access to beauty through a department store or a branded store, right? And these were storefronts, these were brick and mortar. Obviously, up comes e-commerce. Then we get some direct to consumer channels. We also have Sephora coming to the US. Sephora is really interesting in the way they launch. Sephora, the reason you're buying indie brands today, I like to credit Sephora for it. The big brands that we already talked about were not allowing their product into Sephora. And so Sephora said, well, forget it. The indie brands are actually coming up with better ingredients and better products. It's interesting, Claire just mentioned like a new ingredient, right? Hyaluronic acid was not heard of 5, 10 years ago. And now it's in almost every product. So it's sort of interesting the way this has evolved. And now we have sales channels that are really diversified. You have brand.com, you have retailer.com. So brand.com would be like, hankies.com. That is my brand. Retailer.com would be if we sell through Macy's or Nordstrom or Sephora or Ulta. Now those channels are also billing out wholesale channels so that you go in and sell directly to consumer your product, but it's through their platform. It's sort of like the Amazon model sometimes, but not always. Then you also obviously have Amazon. Then you have TikTok. Then you have the IG shop. Then, I mean, I could keep going. It's really become a fractured marketplace. So Jenny, I'll come to you first on this one. But like, I guess just where do you feel like we are right now in terms of the sales channels? Where should the big brands be focusing? Where should the small brands be focusing? What's your guidance?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, very much evolving. I think maybe interesting to talk a little bit because I did actually lead the expansion of Curology into brick and mortar retail, kind of how we thought about it. Because Curology was, again, a smaller brand, and had just been direct to consumer for like 7 years. So only selling on Curology.com. That was the only place that people could buy the products. And ultimately, the decision to expand into retail was driven by a few things. First, interestingly, when you look at size of each channel, still brick and mortar is actually the biggest. Still, like the Targets, the Walmarts, like that actually is the biggest channel to buy beauty in. So a lot of it was just like, this is where our shoppers are. Like, if we're trying to grow, like, this is where we can reach people. And then we also really viewed it as an awareness driver. Those channels are so trusted for the most part. So when your brand is in there, that is a signal to consumers that like you are a trusted, vetted brand of some sort. And then just the billboard you get, like even if no one's buying you, like walking by a Curology on a shelf, you're gonna get that awareness. So it was almost like another marketing channel. So that was kind of how we thought about retail, which was I think a very effective play there. And also, it's kind of a nice sampling place as well. Like people will buy initially in brick and mortar retail and then replenish meaning like when they run out of something, they'll buy a new one like on Amazon. It's way easier to just add your cart on Amazon. So it's kind of, yeah, the channels work together in different ways. But I think for a smaller brand, again, I don't know if it makes sense to start in retail, but I think once you've built your business up to a certain point, I think expansion into brick and mortar retail can really just like take you to that next level.
Claire, I wonder if you can sort of build on that then. So you launch how, and let's say 2 years from now, where would you like to be?
Yeah. I think everything Jenny said is kind of like what we want to do.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
essentially, we launched on Amazon. Um, After speaking with a lot of mentors in the space, essentially we found that Amazon was the quickest to get started to test really if this product is something that people want. And then also just the margins on Amazon aren't great, but it's better than retail sometimes, most times. So this is how we just like started. It's been going very well for us. And then now that we've kind of, yeah, just feel very comfortable on Amazon, we have a lot more runway with just like funds. We're looking to expand into retail. I think it's a complete different like wheelhouse. So we're learning a lot as we go, but definitely agree that I think the biggest thing that retail really helps us is definitely just like meeting people where they shop, but also that
Mhm.
trust factor. Just being an online business is not, I think, not the best way to do it, especially with just like so many other competition. We really do think that retail is a must in our sales like channel. So that's where we're going.
I'm curious, and maybe you don't want to share because it might be some sort of trade secret for you all, but are you interested in a specific retailer at this point?
That's a great question. We would
How about I
honestly,
phrase it this way?
yeah,
Would you be more interested in a beauty focused retailer, or would you be more focused on a more typical traditional department store,
we would be more interested in like like
a
mass
mass
retail.
market?
Yes,
Okay.
like Costco, Walmart, CVS. Yeah.
Costco, by the way, one of the biggest sellers of beauty for people who don't know. It's a huge channel in the beauty industry.
Yeah.
So what's also interesting is I did not hear you mention the beauty channels, which would be Sephora, Ulta primarily. Do you care to share why? I would understand if you don't, and I'm happy to sort of step in and answer my own question.
For us right now, after doing our research, Sephora especially, just are kind of notorious for being super cutthroat, as
Yep.
well as like being very hard hitting on margins. So that's
Huge margin take. Yeah. And then for people who don't understand, you're also going to pay for marketing. You're also going to pay for all the shelf talkers. You're also going to, so there's a huge commitment of cash before you even sell your first product. So Sephora is a really tough channel to get into and make successful for a lot of brands, and it actually breaks brands. As Claire is pointing out, it's broken some brands in their growth strategy. So yeah. Anyway, I won't go too much further into that. I'll say for us, what's interesting about being a multi-brand retailer versus like we do not create any of our own product. We started as a .com. We expect our primary channel will always be .com. In fact, I'm sitting in a pop-up right now. This is not my typical office. I'm not in a subway station. I'm sitting in a pop-up. We're in downtown LA for this week, kind of seeing what does a 1 week retail experience look like. We're right by Pershing Square, so it's fairly well trafficked, and it gives us an opportunity to chat with people in person. I assume at some point brick and mortar will be a part of our strategy, but Jenny, you hit it. It's more a marketing part of the strategy than actually a sales channel. Guys also shop somewhat differently than women. So we're looking right now. We're investigating potentially a destination retail strategy. So what that would mean is rather than being in every mall or in all the A level or B level malls, we would actually be looking at, well, where do people go on vacation? Because my consumer needs to be relaxed to shop. If he's in a rush, it's not great. If he's with his partner or spouse who can or mom who can guide the sales experience, even better. And so, I'll go to Maui with my family and watch people shopping in Maui. And there's a couple and their kids are running ahead, or the kids are, they're going to go get something to eat, and then the couple just strolls and shops for a minute. I think that's probably where I'll catch a lot of consumers. So we're really looking deeply at that right now. Places like Maui, Tahoe. Really, I'm trying to think too about what's 365, right? I don't want to be high season, low season. So we would initially launch in sort of high season or in 365 retail destinations. So that would be more like something like, New York, Fifth Avenue, Chicago, Magnificent Mile. Hard to find one in LA, to be honest with you. Um, but okay, so talking from that though, I'd like to jump for a second to TikTok. Um, I don't have a lot to say on TikTok. So this is a section where everybody can relax. You're not going to hear from me for a few minutes. Uh, Claire, is your brand deep in TikTok?
TikTok or TikTok shop.
It's sort of both. Yeah,
Both.
and or however you'd like to answer that, because yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I would say we are on TikTok, but having difficulties on TikTok shop.
Yeah.
So TikTok shop, I believe everyone knows. From like a brand side, there needs to be a huge amount of investment up front in order to just like join and reach the affiliates the way that you need to. That requires a lot of units of free product to send to each affiliate. And what we found in our experience of trying TikTok Shop for over just around like just a year or a little bit over a year is that it's very difficult to stand out if you don't have huge budgets to work with. I've kind of alluded to this before. So I would say that on TikTok Shop, it's not our best sales channel, but we're still trying on TikTok by doing the organic gifting, and also creating our own organic content as well with our own like Honeydew Labs in, TikTok account. Um, but TikTok Shop is proving a little difficult for us.
I,
Yeah.
I've I've heard similar. Jenny, do you have a take on TikTok?
I was gonna say similar to Claire, at Carol G, around when I left, we were just experimenting on TikTok Shop and hadn't really cracked it. And then I've done some beauty consulting as well for other beauty brands. And same thing, I have yet to um, be at a brand that has really cracked it. So yeah, I'm similar, echoing what Claire says.
I would just say that the only thing I can add is that the conversations I have had with some other beauty founders recently is around the TikTok lives. The ones who are successful on TikTok are like when I say going deep on TikTok live. So they'll be brand live for part of the day, maybe an hour. And then their goals are to scale so that then they have people all over the globe, right? These influencers, these content creators that we're referring to would then keep their brand live 24/7. That is their strategy that they're looking at doing, which I find compelling, right? It's an HSN QVC, which traditionally,
Right.
right, if you go back to the 80s, 90s, those were two very large channels
Right.
for beauty. And then you think about the infomercials. I grew up watching Cher. I fell in love with Cher, I think, because she did an infomercial. And then I was like, oh wait, she sings great songs too. And so yeah, I got down to that. But Jenny, so you have some response.
No, I was just gonna say it's what you said earlier, like what's old is new again. Yeah, this is like the new.
I'm
Right.
interested though, like, do you guys watch the lives? Because I myself, as a person on
I
TikTok,
can't
I've never.
stand them.
Yeah. So I'm just curious
I
who actually is like purchasing slash even watching those lives.
I'll just say this. What I have noticed by digging in, because I've heard this from multiple sources. So I did a little bit of just research for the brand on my own, and just anecdotally speaking, what I see is these are brands that are able to cut costs huge. Like Claire, you mentioned there's the cost of sending out the product, right? There's also this cost that everybody's marking off on TikTok. I pay wholesale margins, so and we're not in a position to really negotiate hard. So 50% of retail is wholesale, right? And so I don't have margins to cut that much off to
Right.
discount that big. So for me, it's like I just don't see how I can make the finances work on TikTok Live or in the TikTok shop. Have you guys tried live at all?
No, we'd never.
Yeah.
But I mean, kind of sounds interesting, but at the same time, like not sure if it'll work. But yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke, but I'm fascinated by the work you've been doing, and bringing in a new ingredient is always such compelling work, right? Ordinary, that we all know now, was basically built off of hyaluronic acid, and now it's in everything. And so I just, I think keeping an eye on Claire's company, for those of you who are interested in the beauty industry, this will be an interesting brand to watch develop, and you're learning about it sort of new in its journey. I assume, Claire, your journey is about to skyrocket here shortly, just based on the fact that you've brought a new ingredient to market, which is, beauty is all about the next big thing.
I hope so. And actually, one thing that I do want to say about TikTok is that as a company with just like a very few like small amount of product lines right now, we're constantly monitoring it and it's really informing us about like the next product that we're going to launch. TikTok especially, it's like I think the products that do well on there are number one, like they're very backed up in research and science, which is why we chose hypochlorous acid as our ingredient. Lots of derms love talking about it. It's very well tested. Secondly, like texture and visuals. I don't know if you guys have seen the brand Arsenia. I think it's called Arsenia. It's like a Korean like jelly type of face cleanser. It looks like a mochi, but
Okay.
texture and colors are always something that we're monitoring on TikTok. Encapsulated like little yellow beads in moisturizers. Just yeah, texture, colors, like these are all things that I think work really well on TikTok. And because so many people shop on TikTok or based on the information on TikTok, like we can't help but to want to like have some qualities like that. Mhm.
The only caveat I would say is not in men's. Men don't want change. They don't want difference. We don't need to chase trends. For us, it's
Mhm.
getting the staples, right? And we're still really educating men anyway.
Mhm.
We're just trying to get them to understand the staples of self-care and good grooming. I want to get to a question that came up in the chat, which was part of something that I wanted us to talk about today. So, for those of you who pivoted in, what drove you to jump in? What sounded like an incredibly crowded market? And how did you market yourself to gain that credibility among others? Jenny, this might be a great place for you to start since you work with students. You also have personal experience. For people looking to pivot into the beauty industry, what is your guidance? Where do you guide them to start?
Yeah, at this point, I would say, first of all, a very, it's a big industry, but it's a small industry. I think like you'll find like before we were talking, I don't know, we were made connected, like it's very connected in that way. So of
Yeah.
course, I know everyone says this, but I think about beauty in particular, like really tap into your network. Like I think that is just you just got to do it. Like LinkedIn is your best friend. Find out who you know at this company you're interested in. Who knows who whatever. But just finding an in, I think, is especially important in beauty. And then I would say the extent to which you can just like get your foot in the door, which again, it maybe is obvious too, but I don't know. I feel like in terms of content creation, like that's a great way to kind of get in there. Like even like I don't know, not an internship, but like I don't know, just offering to create just any way you can kind of get in there to get some experience, I think is really really helpful. Those are things I think we've talked about a lot in my class. What else? I think those are the two, honestly, like biggest things. And then just, yeah, doing your research. It's such a trend-driven industry. So it is very important to be up on like what is the latest and like on it every single day. And yep, social media is important. Like being on, like knowing what's happening in these channels that are critical, like that is also going to differentiate you in the space.
Claire, anything to build on that?
Yeah, I think as a employer now, also it depends on the job, right? Like as a marketer or like whatever you're going into within the beauty industry. But as an employer, I think within the beauty industry, we tend to have like a lot of attention to detail. Like we're very like beauty is very visual, so we will catch really anything, especially if it's like a resume or cover letter, that looks like slightly off. So just
Yeah.
make sure that those small details are just like spot on. And then also if it is marketing, the marketing side that you're going into, as an employer, really look at kind of their personal brand. Like, can I see this person have their own like thoughts and voice that can be like amplified with content? Are they a visual person? Like what is your strength? And try to really hone in on that.
And I think I would just add on top of that, if I could, like it's also not inappropriate to sort of be a reverse influencer. Right. So I was going to ask you if someone came to you and said, "Hey, can I start posting content about your brand?" What would you say, Claire? Would you tell them no?
Like on their own account.
I mean, basically,
Yeah.
right? Like I've seen some people do this where
Mm.
this is my goal brand to work for, especially if it's a smaller brand. This is my goal brand to work for, and reach out just through the brand channel on IG and basically ask the question, I love your brand. Someday I'd like to work for you. For now, though, I'd be so happy to like help assist with anything you need me to do online. Would that be effective for you, Claire? Would that catch your eye?
It would catch my eye, but I would look at their Instagram right away to see if it's like a quality that is what we're looking for. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. Which I think speaks to what you were saying a second before, that it matters. Your brand alignment still matters in a very interesting way. And then just to build on what Jenny was just saying about being informed on the industry, there are several industry groups. There's CEW, BIW, which are great groups. That I would also just recommend reading the industry news magazines, right? Like there's something called WWD, and I know some of you on here are fashion focused. If you are not reading and you are focused on beauty or fashion and you are not reading WWD on the daily, then you're not informed and you need to be. And if you're like, but I can't afford $300 a year, because yes, it's an expensive subscription. The LA Public Library actually has a subscription through one of their platforms. So feel free to shoot me an email if you're like, wait, how does that work? Because I don't remember the name of the app right now, but you can get it for free through one of the LA Public Library apps. And I'm sure if you're not in Los Angeles, you could find it elsewhere. And then the other thing that I will say, just as the Trojan on the panel, is your Trojan family is really here to help you. I don't know of any other institution that really, truly, if you reach out to someone on LinkedIn and you're like, I am a Trojan, I am interested in your company, I am interested in the job you have, I am interested in the industry you work for. And honestly, I see it actually more successfully the higher the people get on the ladder. So I would just say make sure you're using the Trojan Network, getting involved in alumni association events, meeting and chatting with others. It's something that these two can't really speak to. But literally, I launched my company. My accountant is a Trojan. My lawyer is a Trojan. I have two advisors that are Trojans. I'm being introduced to potential funding through my Trojan networks. So I just don't, we paid a lot for this education, or you worked really hard to earn this education. And I just want to make sure you're using that. Also, for those of us who graduated in the 90s, thank you to those of you who graduated after and increased the value of my education. The acceptance rate when I went to USC was in the 60% range. And I know now it is in the single digits. So I just thank you for making me seem so much smarter. But we'll leave that there. I also had a question in the chat about Road. So they'd love to hear the take on Road's sale to Elf and how to think about leaving runway for growth when considering as a next step a strategic sale, or on the buy side from a Neutrogena perspective, a strategic acquisition. I have more academic knowledge of this. I'm sort of learning it now. Jenny, I think maybe you might have a little more practical experience with that.
Yes, I will say, unfortunately, I was not super involved in like our acquisition strategy, but I do think on this, and again, similarly from what I've read in also second Women's Wear Daily, also love Business of Fashion, another good one.
Oh,
But I
yes.
know like Elf just came out, and Elf has been on fire for a while, but they just came out with their latest like earnings, and Rhode was their fastest growing brand and like drove their results this quarter. So clearly it was a great acquisition. And I think a lot of it is just like it filled a hole in their portfolio. Like when you look at their other brands, and it was like a clear gap. So I think they're reaching like truly an incremental audience with Rhode. And they're also now like their other brands, I believe, are all in kind of the mass channel. This allowed them to go prestige. So obviously in Sephora and like, so yeah, I think it was a really smart acquisition and just again allows them to reach kind of a new audience and also acquire some expertise from Rhode through understanding again more of a luxury product. And what they're giving Rhode is like obviously all of their crazy operations and supply chain and all of that stuff that just will allow them to like scale so much more.
Claire, as a founder, you must think about an exit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for us, we are looking for an exit within the next 5 years. I think seeing brands like Rhode and smaller brands have very successful exits are very promising. I would say that more so from just like a viewer's side, when I see Rhode's marketing, it's like always very inspirational. Some of the things that they do, it's actually like crazy. I don't know if you guys have seen the recent one where they sent testers just like test tubes, like look with like barely any like packaging on it, and ask them to review the product before it goes live. And they asked them to like take a TikTok video talking about their experience with the test tubes. So I think just seeing how they operate is very inspirational, and hope that one day Honeydew Labs can have a great exit as well.
The other thing I think I would add to this is I happen to work closely with LVMH for a little bit, and I found it really interesting the way LVMH strategizes, right? What LVMH does, and this applies to both fashion and beauty because they own these brands that sit in both spaces. LVMH understands trend, right? Every brand is going to have an up and a down, and they recognize that, and so they own enough brands that Dior can be hot, and as Dior sits on the top, something else is at the bottom, and they're getting ready to launch it and bring it up to Dior. So now if you follow Dior closely, Dior sales have been scaling back, and in the meantime they're moving up Givenchy and a couple other brands. So I do know from the LVMH in that prestige category and the luxury categories, that both are, they're looking for the whole, Jenny, like you point out, but they're also making sure they stay up with the trend, right? And we're going to, and it also is cultural. In some moments, we're leaning toward France. In some moments, we're leaning a little more toward Italy. We actually don't lean very often at the prestige and luxury levels to the US, but I see that evolving a little bit. And I think there's some opportunities there as well. Kiri, who I know, it's great to see you, Kiri. I'm glad you're here. Question for Claire. I'm sure you see it as well, but why did you launch on Amazon as opposed to your own website? You talked about the large investment needed for TikTok Shop. Was it the same on Amazon? Do you sell from your own website? If so, how did you move or convert customers from Amazon to your website sales?
Oh my gosh, so many questions here. To answer the first one, we launched on Amazon instead of direct to consumer slash like our own website because the cost to find customers and bring them to your own website is actually more expensive than just the cost of people who are already searching the term hypochlorous acid on Amazon, ready to buy like in that moment. Amazon's very much like a they already considered buying you and like searching rather than like a journey type of platform. So that's why, because it was just cheaper CAC, customer acquisition cost. And then talked about large investment needed for TikTok Shop. What about Amazon? Amazon, I would say definitely you do need a sizable investment, but I would say not as much as TikTok Shop. Especially because there's more things that you can do to increase your visibility on Amazon, like listing optimization. TikTok Shop, you'll just get buried if you're, from my experience, you'll just get buried if you're not sending enough affiliate samples. And then lastly, we do sell from our own website. Please check us out at honeydolabs.com. And then
Let's be clear. If you're going to buy through her.com. Be a nice person. Be a nice person.
And how do I move consumers from Amazon to website sale? Right now, we actually we don't have active efforts to move consumers to D2C yet, because we're actually not doing any paid ads. We're not running ads on Meta at all. But once we start moving towards the like Meta ads, offline ads, we will try to get a 3PL, which is essentially like other warehouse like avenues so that we can move things at a cheaper cost when consumers purchase from our website. Right now, when consumers purchase from the website, we actually still use Amazon fulfillment, so the cost to send out the product is the same for us, regardless which channel. Pause here.
Great job, Claire. Good work. I have thoughts on everything you were just saying, and we can talk offline on the 3PL piece because I did a lot of research on that, which that is another world entirely. Miley, I did see your hand went up, and I don't know if it automatically goes back down, but I see we've got about 5 minutes left, and if you had a follow-up question I see you shaking your head also. So
Yeah, I'm happy to go. I just didn't want to, I was watching the clock, so wanted
no,
to make sure that we had
go, yeah,
time.
throw it at us.
It was around social like conversation. Claire, you mentioned being conscious of like the things that are coming out on TikTok and watching things around texture. And I know a lot of those kind of insights start in the comment section. I wanted to know from you guys, like in your industry, how are you using social monitoring tools and then like specifically insights like in the comments to inform product, but also like further marketing tactics or things of sort?
That's a great question. Um, we're actually not using any native like TikTok scraping or analysis tool. The most that we use is like the analysis tool that comes with TikTok Shop because you can filter kind of like high level, like what's trending and whatnot. Um, and we're doing things quite manually, like looking at each video, looking at each view and comments. One thing that we are being careful of, which I actually wanted to mention because trends, we're not chasing trends actually. That's kind of the opposite of what we want to do because things might trend, especially if it's colorful or whatnot, for a short bit, but it'll die down. And that's not the type of product we want to release. However, there's a fine line of something that becomes a trend and has the longevity piece, which is why we always look for like really like clinically backed ingredients. Our dermatologists talking about it, not just, creators who are fascinated by the appeal of the way it looks. So right now, yeah, to answer your question, we don't have any specific tool, but always open to.
I guess with the short time we have left, I wonder if I could ask both of you to weigh in, and if there's time, I'll throw in mine as well. Sort of what you see coming in the next 12 months in the industry. You could look at it macroeconomically, you could on a micro scale. So, Claire, if you want to talk to your company, what's coming for you, or on the macro level, what do you expect to be happening in our industry?
I think with just like the access to information, especially with AI tools, more consumers will be like more informed ever than like more than ever. So they'll be looking
Yeah.
closer at ingredients, also closer at how it's formulated. So I think this will be this will be visible even in like physical retail, like Sephora. I think it's very brand based right now, but I think it'll kind of shift towards being more ingredient based, like things are organized more by ingredients, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'll stop
Yeah,
here.
we're seeing that in the men's space too, which is sort of interesting.
Yeah.
But Jenny, what are your thoughts? Next 12 months, what should we be paying attention to? Don't forget to unmute.
Yes, I was also going to say, of course, AI. I mean, I think the move to like increase, I feel like the personalization journey has been going on for a while. That was part of Curology's big thing, but I think just it's with AI now, everything's going to get so hyper personalized. And again, the information access that people have to really find like what is the exact right solution for me, for my exact like the skin assessments and all that stuff, I think is gonna really heat up a lot more. So I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to future-proof yourself, they had told us before this started that many of you might be interested in sort of how to get into our industry. And if you're trying to future-proof yourself as you approach this industry, it's really about being, in my mind, it's creative. We can turn to the AI agents to help us with the business aspects. I'm sure Claire and I probably could have spoken to you all for an hour just about how we've used AI to, not hire as many people as we launch and to take care of content creation, et cetera. So then you have to think of yourself as like future proofing. What is my role going to look like? And how will I be able to contribute to a company? I think a lot of us in this AI world have been like, well, it's the company's responsibility to find me a job. And I will remind you that the people who are going to be successful as we move into this AI-based society are the ones who can define what their role is and the value add, and not just what you're going to sit in the seat and suck up. So that would be my big thing to pay attention to in the next 12 months, because I think we're about to see a whole lot more of it as we see it scale. Um, I just dug in on Claude 2 or 3 weeks ago after 2 years on ChatGPT, and I'm just I was missing out. Like I'm missing out, and it's going to prevent me hiring another 2 people probably. Like it's
Cool.
yeah, we recoded the website. Thank you, Claude and Tom. Tom's not a coder, just for everybody's knowledge. With that, thank you, friends, for spending some time with us this afternoon. Priya, I think I'm kicking it back over to you. Fight on, everybody, and we just so appreciate all of your time.
If you can't see me, I'm the voice of the Alumni Association. Thank you all so much for being here. Jenny and Claire, and Tom, of course, thank you for moderating. Jenny and Claire, thank you for contributing today. We all appreciate it so much. And all of you who are Trojans, please check out the Trojan Connect website and sign up for some more of these immensely interesting topics and immensely interesting conversations. And thank you to the Alumni Association, and shout out to Simone for everything she does to keep this all together. Thank you very much, and see you soon. And guess what? Fight on!